All right, Unit 2, Lesson 9, Correlation Exercise Demonstration. A correlation tells you how closely associated or how strong two things are related. There are two types of correlations. There are a positive one, that means when one thing increases, the other thing increases, or when the other thing one goes down, the other goes down. There is also a negative correlation. When one thing goes up or increases, the other thing decreases. And that's handy too. So they both are, negative correlations are as strong as positive correlations. You'll need that for your quiz also. This is the number crunching part of it. We have 5 people, and these 5 people have taken 2 tests each. They've taken test X and test Y. The first person scored 1 on the X test, 10 on the Y test. The second person scored 2 and 20, 3 scored 3 and 30, and so on. When you are working with correlations, these numbers are locked together. They stay together the entire time. You don't separate them. Okay? Now, anytime you see something at the top of the column, that means it's the function of that column. So what do we do with it? We're going to times it by itself, which is square it, right? So we're going to square x. 1 squared is 1. What's 10 squared? You know what 10 squared is? 10 times 10? It's 100, right? We're going to fill out our little grid. 2 squared is 4. 20 squared is 400. 3 squared is 9. 30 squared is 900. 4 squared is 16. 40 squared is 1600. 5 squared is 25. 50 squared, 2500. Everybody good to hear? Nothing funny yet? What if we have X and Y next to each other? What do we do there? Yeah, you multiply them together, one by the other. So 1 times 10 is 10. 20 times 2 is 40. 30 times 3 is 90. 40 times 4 is 160. 50 times 5, 250. All right, we've got the grid kind of filled out. You remember these fancy E's at the bottom, uppercase sigma, good old Greek letter? What does that mean to do? What do you do when you see that? No, the mean is the X with the bar over it. That's right, good question. This means sum of or add them up. So I'm going to add this column up and I'm going to put it right there. So if this is 9, and that's 1 more, and there's 5 here, that should be 15 when you punch it in the calculator. Okay? And when you add these up, should be 150. Let's see what else I got here that I can do me some cheating. We add this one up and I get 55. I add this one, it's 5,500. I got to write kind of small. And then I add this column and it's 550. Can you guys get to there? If you can get to there, that helps a bunch. Okay? Now, the only thing tricky, this is not as hard as doing normal curve calculations. The only thing that is tricky is we're doing all of this, we've got to get these 3 numbers to plug into this equation. This number, sum of x squared with parentheses around it, is this number squared, sum of x. That one happens to be 15 times 15, which is 225. That is not this number. Do you see the difference? This number is this column sum of or added up. This is this number squared. So that's why I put the parentheses in there. This number is this one squared, which happens to be 22,500. In your calculator, you just put 150 in there and press the squared button, and that's what it'll spit out. Okay? With these numbers down here, we can now plug and chug and do these calculations. This is sum of little x. So these are big X's, uppercase. This we're calculating for lowercase. So sum of x squared, that's this one, 55, minus this sum of x squared is 225, divided by n. N is the number of pairs. How many pairs of numbers are we working with here? 5. So we divide this by 5. 225 divided by 5 is 45. We'll put that here. So what's 55 minus 45? I can wait. 55 minus 45. I'm pretty sure it's 10, isn't it? Does that make sense? It's positive 10. We now do sum of little y squared. Sum of y squared is this one, 5,500. We pull that down here, minus this sum of y squared with parentheses, that's this number, 22,500, divided by n. What did we say n was? 5, that's right, it stays the same. And we get, when we divide that out, it should be 4,500. Let's see. It is. What's 5,500 minus 4,500? 1,000. You guys see where that number comes from? 5,500 minus 4,500, it leaves you with 1,000. Okay? Now we got to do the xy. So sum of xy is 550 minus sum of x, that's back here, 15. Sum of y is 150 over n again, n is 5. And when we do all this magical calculations, we get 450. 550 minus 450 will leave you 100. You have to get these three numbers right before you can plug into this equation. When you do that, sum of little xy is this number, 100 over, and then we have the square root, we put the sum of little x, which is 10. And the sum of little y squared is 1,000. That's going to be 10,000. And the square root of 10,000 is 100. So 100 over 100 is positive 1.00. And that is the correlation. This is what is called a perfect positive correlation. When we put it on the graph, the first person scored 1 on the x test and 10 on the y test, so we're going to put the dot right there. Second person scored a 2 and a 20. Third person scored a 3 and a 30. Fourth one scored 4 and a 40. Fifth one scored 5 and a 50. And if you see that, it is a straight line. Okay? The strongest correlations are a straight line or a slope, and you get into slope, this is kind of where all this comes from in math. This means if they score 1 on the first test, you can predict that every time they'll score 10 on the second test if the correlation is this strong. Okay? And that's all just from numbers. You guys good? Kinda? All right, the best thing to do is just practice it, and then we will talk about in our previous video lesson when I get it up there, it talks about what the correlation is and why it's important, and we'll get to that. Okay, we should be ready for our quiz, so let's do that.